I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Wednesday, April the 24th, 2013. The New York Times reports that Israel reached a compromise today with UNESCO, the United Nations educational, scientific, and cultural organization, allowing the body to inspect sites in Jerusalem in exchange for the postponement of several Palestinian-sponsored resolutions. The deal was brokered yesterday in an unusual partnership between the U.S. and Russia, with the help of Jordan and Brazil and UNESCO's Director General. It allows UNESCO inspectors to have access to the Old City of Jerusalem, including the Western Wall and the Mughrabi Bridge to the Temple Mount, as part of an action plan to inspect and safeguard the cultural heritage of the city. In return, the Palestinians have agreed to postpone 5 resolutions critical of Israel that were pending before UNESCO. The deal follows years of tension between Israel and the UN body over national heritage sites, like the Cave of the Patriarchs in Hebron, that have added fuel to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Anti-Defamation League welcomed the compromise, which they said will hopefully get UNESCO out of the conflict and instead refocus their attention on protecting World Heritage sites. ADL National Director Abe Foxman said for too long, UNESCO and other international bodies have been used by the Palestinians as forums for attacking Israel and avoiding returning to negotiating table. We hope that this agreement, he said, marks the end of Palestinian efforts to politicize these international bodies and a new openness to constructive compromise. Reuters reports, citing the Interfax news agency, that Syria's information minister said his country would not use chemical weapons either against its own citizens or against Israel. Interfax quoted Minister Omran al-Zawabi saying that even if Syria has chemical weapons, they would not be used against Syrians or, in the event of war, against its neighbor Israel, on moral, legal, and political grounds. This follows yesterday's claim by a senior Israeli official, as you may have seen on IBA News, that Syria had used chemical weapons against rebels fighting to overthrow President Bashar Assad. White House spokesman Jay Carney had told reporters yesterday that the United States had not concluded if that assessment was true or not. A Palestinian was shot and lightly injured today after trying to breach Israel's security fence near Jenin in the West Bank. IDF soldiers opened fire on the man after spotting him with another Palestinian trying to enter Israeli territory. The soldiers followed protocol and fired at the direction of the man's legs. Both men were found to be carrying a knife. The injured man was treated on site by IDF medics and then taken for further medical treatment in Israel, after which both men will be questioned by Israeli security forces. Israeli President Shimon Peres is set to meet with the new Pope next week. Peres will meet with Pope Francis at the Vatican on Monday during a tour of Italy that will also include meetings with Italy's President Giorgio Napolitano, as well as other leaders, and also with members of the Jewish community there. The Israeli president's residence released a statement saying Peres will raise the issue of furthering peace and stability in the Middle East, progressing peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians, the common struggle against world poverty, and the deepening of relations between Israel and the Vatican and between Christians and the Jewish people. The president's residence also noted that Peres would be one of the first leaders to meet the Pope since his inauguration last month. The Associated Press reports that a 93-year-old former member of the SS is under investigation by German authorities as a possible accessory to murder. Hans Lipsius acknowledges that he served with the SS in Auschwitz, but claims he was only a cook. However, a prosecutor with the German office that deals with Nazi war crimes is looking into whether accessory to murder charges can be filed against Lipsius. Prosecutor Thomas Will said the investigation was only possible after the case of John Demjanjuk, who was the first person convicted in Germany of war crimes on the basis of serving as a camp guard without evidence that he was involved in a specific killing. Demjanjuk died last year while appealing his conviction of 2011. And finally, the Jewish Week reports that Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley, who is currently visiting Israel, announced that 4 Israeli high-tech companies will be opening offices in Maryland over the next few months. The governor is on an 8-day economic trade mission to Israel and Jordan. He announced today that Israeli companies Shekel Scales, Askimo, Roboteam, and Hybrid Security will soon be opening branches in his state. O'Malley said Israel and Maryland share a commitment to education and innovation and to making this world a safer place. These companies, he said, exemplify those commitments and the strength of the bond between Maryland and Israel. This is O'Malley's third trip to Israel. While there this week, he's also meeting with Israeli President Shimon Peres and other government officials. The Israeli companies noted that geographic location and business opportunities in Maryland were a key factor in their decision, and also the fact that Maryland was the first state to reach out and offer support. They also acknowledged the support and help of the Maryland-Israel Development Center. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Wednesday, April the 24th, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader.